Hello everybody, this is the Wikstrand and welcome to another special list I'm going to do. Today we're going to take a look at the art of being a good villain. If you have a good villain, you will automatically have a good movie. And for the last 15 years, if there is anything I want to complain, to the movie industry about, it is scaling down on villains. They have gone from being the second most important character to the end, in the credits. Especially when it comes to comic book villains. 2 days ago, I saw The Batman, and, I don't even think that the Riddler has 10 minutes of actual screen time. Which is a little bit of a shame, because I've always thought that the hero's journey is not as fascinating as him interacting with a villain. So, who are the best villains of all time? We're gonna find out today. We're going to take a look at my top 20 favorite villains of all time. And this is gonna be a really fun list to do, I think. It must be an actor who actually delivers lines, so no monsters on this list. The same character can only appear once, so if there are characters that has been played by multiple actors, it is the best version in the best movie that is counted. Number 20. Rob Roy Archibald Cummingham, Tim Roth. Rob Roy was a pretty damn good movie. It wasn't perfect or anything like that, but Liam Neeson was very good in the titular character, but he was upstaged so much by Tim Roth, one of my favorite actors of all time actually. And this is his magnum opus. Tim Roth has played a couple of fine villains in the past, the Hulk, and of course Planet of the Apes, where he went batshit insane. But this one, he's just such a despicable, horrible person who you have no sympathy for whatsoever. He's arrogant, he has so much self-confidence, and he knows that he is just so much better than everybody else. And he's just tormenting poor old Roy here for almost the entire movie. And you just want him to get his comeuppance. He's so evil, but he's also not a cartoon villain. He does have a reason for his evilness, but he is just such an arrogant, and he's just such a smug prick that you want to see him get his ass kicked. Rob Roy is a good movie with an exceptional villain. Conan the Barbarian, Thulsa Doom, James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones is really cool. James Earl Jones has a voice that was built for villainy. And this movie, he plays Thulsa Doom, the arch nemesis of Conan the Barbarian. He may not have that much screen time, but when he's on screen, his presence is felt all around. He creates this, cult, and, he has this booming voice, and he turns himself into a snake, and he, makes a girl jump to her death, just to prove that how evil he is, and he doesn't even care about that. He killed Conan's parents. Well, maybe I did. Who cares? Crucify him. His otherworldly look and presence, and that last speech he gives on the stairs before Conan comes to chop his head off, is fantastic. I wish he could have had a little bit more screen time, but killer lines like, "Now they know why they fear the night," or whatever he said, it was just great. Also, he uses snakes to shoot arrows at Sandal Bergman. That's weird, but ultimately pretty awesome. Number 18. V for Vendetta. Chancellor Sutler, John Hurt. A little clarification why I'm here and not in the purple room. The number 18 was really supposed to be another character, but then I realized, shit, I forgot about Sutler. He was supposed to be 18. So now I have to do it here, almost a month later. But we'll get back to the purple room for the next entry. It's very unusual for a movie to have both one of the greatest villains of all time and one of the greatest heroes of all time. One of the very few examples of this is actually V for Vendetta. I think it is the only movie I have. I actually have a list of the greatest heroes of all time. Of course I do. But There is only one movie that appears on both lists, and that is V for Vendetta. I absolutely love Hugo Weaven's masked anti-villain or anti-hero or whatever he is, but I absolutely love Chancellor Sutler. The thing is that no other villain on this list has so little screen time, but makes such a big impact as John Hurt does. John Hurt may just look like your very, very friendly grandfather or something like that, but here he is all super business. He's this, fascist leader of, fascist Britain, and he does only appear, I don't know what it's 3 or 4 times, stuff like that, in, a rally at, some election things, when they have blown up the Old Bailey, the sequence in the tunnels in the end, and of course, we have to tell them why they need us! He's like Big Brother and Hitler combined in one, and it is chilling to see him. You just see him on that screen being very angry and being very, maniacal. It is absolutely gorgeous to see him. I don't know if he played Sutler in the sequence where they used the Benny Hill music and they were chasing around each other. That would make, one more appearance, but maybe it was, a lookalike. Anyway, getting sidetracked. He is just such a fantastic villain, and one of the arguments for that sometimes less is more, because you don't see him that much, but you can feel his presence. Sometimes when a villain is off the screen too long, you feel that he doesn't matter anymore, but here it does. I could have used a couple of more sequences of him, maybe having him, have some more monologues and stuff like that every once in a while, just to keeping up that he is the, the villain of the piece, and he's, the dictator that we're gonna have to try to take down. I absolutely love his character, absolutely love how evil and maniacal he is, but he also feels like he's a leader with a purpose. He's basically a distressed dictator whose country is slowly slipping away from him, and the desperation that you can see, further away. It is great, and I just wish he could have been a little bit more screen time. Then he could have been even higher on this list. Number 17, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Peyton, Rebecca de Monnery. Sometimes you don't need a villain, that is going to, take over the world or, conquer galaxies or whatever. You just need a villain that wants to destroy a family. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle from 1992 is an underrated masterpiece of psychological terror, and you just need a woman with a friendly smile, and you just need a psychopath that lurked herself in and slowly manipulating a family into oblivion. I hated Peyton so much when I saw, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle the first time. I hated her so much that when the mother, punches her out, I leapt from my seat and yelled, "Yes!" There is actually a mirror image for this one that's going to come up even further up on the list, but we'll get to that in a second. But let's talk for a second about her character. Her motivation and why she's doing this is absolutely understandable. She has just gone cuckoo in the head, but you can sympathize with her to a certain point. But then, oh my god, you just hate her so much because she's so calm and collected. She only loses her shit once. And that just gives you a little bit of the, psychopath that looms around the calm and collective, friendly surface of Peyton. She is scary. And because this movie is so damn laser focused on her as a character, she's the most important person in the entire movie. She outshines everybody. And that is why she's one of the most effective villains that's ever been made. I have a very soft spot for these. I call them domestic thrillers. It is basically, these movies where it is more of a smaller story where, it is just, domestic disturbance or, things that can happen to, normal people. rather than, nuclear launch codes on the loose or anything like that. Peyton is one of the scariest villains on this entire list, and Rebecca de Monnery did it with such small brush strokes that it is very impressive to look at. Number 16, Moonraker. Hugo Drax, Michael Lonesdale. Hugo Drax is on this list for two major reasons. The first one being, of course, that he is the ultimate Bond villain, in a sense. Because think about it, no other Bond villain has had so many opportunities to kill James Bond and have decided to do it in the most overcomplicated way possible, giving Bond proper time to escape. This is probably where Dr. Evil got his, no, I'm just going to leave and assume that everything goes according to plan. But there is also the fact is that he has the greatest villain plan of all time. No plan cooked up by mad scientist or evil genius ever that comes even remotely close to how batshit insane Hugo Drax's plan is. It is so over the top, and yet it's somehow kind of believable. Made possible because Michael Lonesdale was just so cool in this movie. His lunacy is simply too great to be ignored. He's not the greatest Bond villain of all time, but damn it, he comes a close second. Who is number one when it comes to the Bond villains? We shall see. We'll get there. But when it comes to the villain's plan, you can't get any sillier, bigger, or more awesome than Hugo Drax. Number 15, Mr. India, Mogambo, Amrish Puri. Dr. Evil took one look at Mogambo and said, Mogambo, you're too evil. The thing is that this villain is so over the top that you can't take this seriously in any way, but I don't think that is the point of the movie. So Mogambo has an island where he has a throne room and flags, and he has a big army, and he has missiles, and he forces his soldiers to jump into a pool of was it lava or was it acid? I think it was acid, just to prove how loyal they are, yelling "Hail Mogambo" and stuff like that. And he says Mogambo is pleased, and he's just so much fun to watch. If you're for some reason recognizes this guy a little bit, that is the villain from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, by the way. Mr. India is a very silly and kind of ridiculous Indian movie, and Mr. India himself, who fights Mogambo, is not that interesting of a character, and the movie is kind of slow, and Mogambo, of course, doesn't have that much screen time, but the sequences that he's in, he's just so over the top. He's like a parody of a Bond villain, and possibly one of the most entertaining villains I've ever seen. I had to include him here just because he was so fucking awesome. Passenger 57, Charles Rane, Bruce Payne. Passenger 57 is a run-of-the-mill Wesley Snipes action movie where he kicks, punches and shoots people and have bad lines and acts not very good. But it does have an absolutely standout villain. Why couldn't, they use this character in a completely different movie, with a big budget and huge superstars? It would have been great, because he is just this psychopathic killer that is, on the run, and he's manipulative, and he's really, really legitimately scary. He's so good that he feels miscasted in this movie. He should have just been, your usual standard bug-eyed evil dude who, just did stuff and then Wesley Snipes kills him. But in Passenger 57, who arguably is one of the better Wesley Snipes movies, he steals the entire show to the point where it is basically a one-man show, and also Wesley Snipes is in this one. Passenger 57 is an uncomplicated action movie that for some reason has one of the greatest villains of the entire 90s in it. It's weird. Go watch that movie just for the villain. he's like a Willem Dafoe villain, but without the over the top, but retaining all the, you know, psychoticness about him. That's the closest thing I could describe him as. Air Force One. Ivan Krushinov. Gary Oldman. It's time to take a look at Scary Gary. Gary Oldman made a name of himself of being an exceptional villain in the 90s, and we'll get to his magnum opus in a bit. I'll bet you can figure out what that one is. Air Force One is a really silly movie that has a bunch of really cool action sequences and has a bunch of really tense moments, but nothing is as tense as Gary Oldman's vengeful, you know, Russian who is going to kidnap the president and stuff like that and holds him at gunpoint. And if they would have casted anybody else than Gary Oldman in this movie would probably not have been half as memorable as it is. But the thing is that he is just super evil, and there is a method behind the evilness. Gary Oldman is scary and super evil and ruthless, but he also has a human side to him, which makes him even scarier. And the fact is that when he is arguing, especially with the First Lady and Harrison Ford's daughter, he actually makes some rather compelling arguments to why he may not be as bad of a guy as they think he is. But then he of course shoots a bunch of innocent people and we hate him again. But the thing is that because Gary Oldman was able to make Ivan more of a three-dimensional character, he became an even better villain. And I think that he's one of the most compelling villains of the entire 90s, and that is fucking saying something. Number 12. The Terminator. The Terminator. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do you think Lance Henriksen would have been a better Terminator than Arnold? My guess is no. The thing is that the Terminator is one of the greatest villains of all time. He is the monster that is stalking Sarah Connor. That is the only thing he wants to do. He doesn't want to kill anybody else unless it is required. Everything he does is just to try to kill Sarah Connor, crawling after her, running after her, murdering an entire police station to try to get her. And he rarely speaks. He just has this stoic impression on his face, and he's just frightening. He's just terror in the shape of Arnold Schwarzenegger, just coming after you. And no matter how far you run, he still comes after you. He's just such a fantastic villain, not only from an acting standpoint, but also from a visual standpoint. The jacket, the rugged look he has, and he also managed to have one of the very, very few jokes that the Terminator actually has. It is, you know, when the cleaning man, you know, knocks at his door and says, "Hey, buddy, you got a dead cat in there?" And he has, you know, these different, you know, options what he's going to say, and he says with the utmost uninterest, "Fuck you, asshole." I don't know why, but every time I see that scene, I just crack up so much. He's just so much fun. The thing is that apart from that unintentional humor, I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, it is a weird combination of badassery and an over-the-top silliness. People have praised Robert Patrick for, you know, the T-1000, and he's a really good villain. But there was a little bit too much bells and whistles around him. And this is just so much scarier. Maybe because the Terminator was a scarier and darker movie than the more, you know, glitzy Terminator 2, despite, you know, Terminator 2 obviously being a better movie. But when it comes to the villains, my pick is definitely the Terminator over the T-1000. Number 11, The Matrix. Agent Smith, Hugo Weaven. Mr. Anderson. Hugo Weaven is a fucking genius. No matter what he plays, it is always memorable, and few roles, if any, are as memorable as Agent Smith. The impeccably dressed agent, you know, that, you know, protects the Matrix and is chasing after Keanu Reeves, and He's calm and he's collective, and he just has this gravitas to him. It is only when he's interrogating Morpheus and tries to get out, I hate your stink sequence, where he kind of cracks, even though he might have gone a little overboard with the sequels. In this movie, he is still all business, all threatening, and he just feels like the ultimate bad guy. And you really want to see Keanu Reeves finally take him down, because he just feels like this invulnerable computer program that you cannot stop no matter how you try. And Hugo Weaven has done a bunch of really good villains apart from this one, but this is his best one. Number 10. Leon Stansfield, Gary Oldman. Everyone! The moment where Stansfield snapped. I remember watching this for the first time back in the mid-90s, and when I saw him do that, I jumped out of my seat. Oh, Jesus Christ! I was so excited, you know, with Leon killing all of his men and stuff like that. When he snapped, I realized this guy is a fucking lunatic. When it comes to Gary Oldman, this is his magnum opus. He is just such an unhinged, absolute lunatic. You never know what he's going to do next. And he's unpredictable, and he's just this coked up cop that is completely insane and, you know, kills families and stuff like that. The thing is that the only reason why he isn't even higher on this list is, of course, the fact that he does not have as much screen time as he should have had, but he uses the minutes given to him in the absolute best way possible. Stansfield is not a villain with a complicated backstory and a complex character. He is just a complete lunatic, and I love every second he's on my screen for. I just wish he could have been a little bit more, but the thing is that the end for Stansfield is also one of the best I've ever seen. I was just so heartbroken, and then shit. If you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. Number 9, The Mist. Miss Carmody, Marcy Gray Harden. See Peyton from earlier in the list and rank it up to 11. I hated her so much that when Toby Jones, of all people, shoots her in the head, I leapt out of my seat in the cinema and yelled, "Yes!" And then I said, "Sorry!" And then a guy a little further said, "No, it's okay, I thought the same thing." Apart from King Joffrey's death in Game of Thrones, no on-screen death has ever filled me with more glee than Miss Carmody. It was just perfect. Miss Carmody is a classic Stephen King villain who, you know, is a religious nutcase and manipulative asshole and stuff like that. The thing is that she actually goes through a little bit of an arc because she's this angry but ultimately kind of harmless woman that slowly but surely, you know, brings an entire cult around her. And when she, you know, finally yells, "We want the boy!" and, you know, she goes completely nuts, then you realize how fucking evil she is. And this has, you know, happened by pure accident. She may not be the most unique or well-written villain of all time, but Harden just plays her so good. And every little tweak, every little insecure twitch that she does adds to her character. And it is still one of my favorite moments in cinema history. Number 8. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. The Sheriff of Nottingham, Alan Rickman. Cut his heart out with a spoon! In short, Alan Rickman got carte blanche and was allowed to do whatever he wanted on Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. The result was that no one cared about Robin Hood and everybody just loved the Sheriff of Nottingham. He's just this over-the-top villain that goes even more over the top. He's funny, he's evil, he's compelling, and he's also threatening. And we do want to see him lose, but we kind of also want to see him win, because let's face it, Kevin Costner is about as fun as, you know, a white bread on top of another white bread. But Alan Rickman is an absolute genius, and this is, you know, one of his funniest performances of all time, but not quite his best villain. I'll bet you know which one that is, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. The Sheriff of Nottingham has a bunch of fantastic one-liners, and the thing is that Alan Rickman is such a good actor that he can actually make the over-the-top performances be both funny and threatening at the same time. A rare thing to be able to do. But as a villain, he was able to elevate Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves from a good movie to an absolutely great movie. Number 7. You Only Live Twice. Ernest Stavro Blofeld. Donald Pleasence. Even though, technically speaking, Hugo Drax has a better plan than Ernest Stavro Blofeld, you know, world domination and all that stuff, he still has the most massive evil lair I have ever seen, you know, with monorails, you know, on the bottom of a volcano, and he has, you know, all of these jumpsuit wearing henchmen that will get killed by a bunch of ninjas and stuff like that. But the thing is that we have been building him for, what is it, 3 movies until we actually saw his face for the first time. Donald Pleasence is the ultimate Blofeld, and Blofeld is the ultimate Bond villain. He has to be high on this list, despite, you know, him not having that much screen time. But the thing is that he's just such a compelling villain, and he's just one of these villains that, you know, will live on forever. Despite that he would be played in sequels by other actors, he never quite reached the height that he had in this movie. Nobody would ever be able to top Donald Pleasence when it comes to the gravitas and the plan and his, you know, presentations and stuff like that. And presentation is everything when it comes to the villains. And I'm including Christoph Waltz in that category. Do I think that he's the most complex villain of all time? No. Do I think that he is the greatest Bond villain of all time? Yes. Number 6. Avengers Infinity War. Thanos. James Brolin. This is how you make a villain. You have him being teased for literal years and in several movies. And then he just arrives and he wrecks shop. People have been waiting for Thanos to enter the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever since his tease in the Avengers in 2012. 7 years later, and multiple small cameo appearances in, you know, post-credit sequences and what have you, he finally arrived. And apparently somebody has clocked this and discovered that he has more screen time than any other of the Avengers, and that is how you do it. He is the person of which all the other Avengers evolves around. He's more important than they are. Also, because we haven't seen him yet, we don't know what he's going to do, and he's just this big hulking monster that you cannot defeat. He is impervious to pain, he is so strong, and he just has this determination that he's going to bring back balance to the universe by killing half of the population. It's still not as good of a plan as Hugo Drax, but I digress. It's still one of these absolutely fantastic performances. And to top it all off, you have that ending. One of my favorite endings in the history of cinema, because it is a rare occasion where you're sitting and you have an entire auditorium of people watching a movie sitting in absolute silence. What? Nobody said anything for about 3 minutes, I think. We were just... What? All thanks to one man. One titan, I would say. Thanos. Number 5. Die Hard. Hans Gruber. Alan Rickman. Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. Is Alan Rickman the greatest debut of all time? He just came to Die Hard. Nobody's ever seen him before, and he just killed it. He is one of the greatest villains of all time. Not only because Alan Rickman is such a fucking great actor, but because he brought some kind of charm and some kind of gravitas to the whole thing that just made him so cool. And he also didn't upstage Bruce Willis as John McClane. It is one of these rare occasions where neither man really upstaged the other one. Even though Hans Gruber was the more compelling character, he is still one of the great villains of all time, and he does this with small measures, and I don't know how he did it, but every time I rewatch Die Hard and I see him walk through that door with his henchmen with him, it is just something that happens to the movie. He just elevates the movie, he just injects it with adrenaline. Die Hard is an uncomplicated story with an uncomplicated villain, made so much better just how he is portrayed and how he portrays this character. He's calm, he's collective, and he does have a arrogance about him that I really, really like. Number 4, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Saruman the White, Christopher Lee. I love Christopher Lee so much, and it is just such a shame that he never got to be the big movie star that he deserved to be and he should have been. But in the twilight of his career, he was actually able to become a megastar. And how did he do that? By playing Saruman the White. Apparently Tolkien once told Christopher Lee that he would play Gandalf if they ever made a movie about Lord of the Rings. That would, by the way, be a terrible idea. He was born to play Saruman. His fantastic voice just screams out evil wizard. His claw-like fingers just signals how evil he is, and he just has these fantastic lines. The forces of Mordor is already moving and stuff like that. I can't do his voice justice. He was just so perfectly cast as Saruman that I kind of wished he could have had even more screen time to do even more stuff. But it's just so fascinating to see him, you know, turning from the sort of dark side to the super dark side. When he cuts down his nice little park and builds an orc army instead. Whom do you serve? Saruman. Casting Christopher Lee as a villain in your movie elevates any movie, and this movie, it was just a stroke of genius. I just love Saruman so much as a character, and when I saw that Christopher Lee was going to play him, I almost did a full backflip just out of sheer joy. Number 3, Con Air, Cyrus the Virus, John Malkovich. Make a move and the bunny gets it. John Malkovich is no stranger to over-the-top performances or role as villains, but holy damn, this movie fucking bangs. I love Con Air, I love every aspect of it, and a movie filled with so many memorable villains: Diamond Dog, Johnny 23, Swamp Thing, 8-Ball, the list just keeps going on and on. Garland Green, and you usually have maybe one of these characters in a bunch of movies. They have, 5 or 6 super villains in one single movie, and on top of everybody else, Cyrus the damn Virus. John Malkovich's psychotic killer is basically a complete lunatic that is played to perfection by John Malkovich. It's definitely not subtlety. It is definitely not, a well-balanced performance, but it is the ultimate criminal genius, and he gets one of the best send-offs of all time. And it is a joy to watch him. Every line he has means something. Everything is something about his characters. A small little tweak here and there that just proves that this guy is a fucking lunatic. And also, he threatened to murder a plush bunny. You cannot get any more evil than that. Number 2. The Empire Strikes Back. Darth Vader, James Earl Jones. Apart from Rogue One, it hasn't exactly been smooth sailing for Darth Vader the past years, but in Empire Strikes Back, He is the ultimate villain. He tortures Han Solo, he kills his officers when they fail to do his biddings. He has now complete control over the Empire, apart from the Emperor, who is... And they're talking about Luke Skywalker and all that stuff. Darth Vader is the ultimate villain. In this movie, he's still 100% villain. None of this no nonsense. And he has not yet turned on the Emperor, which he will do in Return of the Jedi. And we also have the amazing moment when he's fighting Luke Skywalker and says, "No, I am your father." All of these things combined with him running an empire and trying to crush the rebellion and all of this stuff. This is Darth Vader in his ultimate form. Just evil, just doing evil stuff, and the presentation and the voice and everything is just mwah! Too bad, about the prequels. And number 1, The Dark Knight, the Joker, Heath Ledger. It might be a little predictable putting Joker at number 1, but I will just go back to when I saw this movie the first time on opening night 2008. I was sitting there, I was minding my own business. I thought that, well, the Joker is certainly a fun character, but he hasn't yet, evolved into that super villain that I've heard about. Then you have this sequence when the Joker interrogates one of the, fake Batmans, and he just yells at one point, "Look at me!" And when he did, I could almost feel the entire cinema just rising up in an upright position. You could hear a pin drop after that. It was one of the most effective sequences I've ever seen in cinema. And after that, I realized something. I was scared of the Joker. I was legit scared that he was gonna come out and just kill me. The Joker is the ultimate comic book villain, and also a compelling argument to why nobody should ever play the Joker ever again, because you can't do a better Joker after this. There are entire YouTube videos dedicated to just this performance by Heath Ledger, who he, by the way, got an Academy Award from. Thank freaking God. And it's a sad thing that this was Heath Ledger's last performance, and it's a bit sad that he couldn't return for the sequel. It's a shame that he couldn't be a part of The Dark Knight Rises, because I think he could have, played a vital role in that movie. The Joker is the greatest villain in movie history, no ifs, buts or coconuts. Simply put, because he is this uncontrollable force that just spills out and becomes something else. He just evolves into almost mythological status. This is one of very, very few cases where the lack of screen time actually works to this movie's advantage, because you never know when he's going to show up, you never know what he's going to do, you never quite know what he's going to do next. And his conversations with Batman and with Harvey and stuff like that, you're hanging on every word he says, and I still get chills when he yells, "You have nothing to threaten me with!" when he's been interrogated by the Batman. And despite, him being locked up with the at the police station, you still feel like he's completely in control. And the fact is that he changes plan. All of a sudden he decides, this plan I just had, it kind of blows. I'm gonna have a new plan. I've never seen that done in any movie. Or at least, one that actually worked. And, the small little things he does when he blows up the hospital and when he, torches the money and stuff like that. Everything, every sequence he's in, he owns it. Batman is a non-factor in this case. You could have had this movie being called The Joker, and you just would have had Heath Ledger running around and causing chaos and havoc, and Batman could have shown up for 2 minutes, and it still would have been basically the same movie. It is one, if not the greatest performance I have ever seen from an actor, and he is the most important character in the entire movie. There is no debate about it. He is the most important, that everything revolves around him, and that is what a great villain should do. And he was able to do it with so little screen time. I actually have to applaud them for actually being able to pull that one off. This was a really fun list to do. I'll see you next time from So and So Reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.